The sound of clinking glasses and soft jazz filled the corners of my new living room. At least, that's how I had imagined tonight would go. Instead, I was sitting on the cold marble floor of my dream home, the echo of silence pressing on my chest like a boulder. The golden light from a chandelier I'd saved 10 years to afford spilled across an empty dining table set for 12. 12 chairs, 12 plates, 12 folded napkins, all of them untouched. My phone screen glowed in my trembling hand. 12 missed calls I had made. Not a single answer. Not one message back. My throat tightened as I stared at the front door, still hoping the handle would turn, that the people I loved most would burst in yelling, "Surprise!" That maybe this was all some elaborate joke. But the clock on the wall screamed the truth. 2 hours had passed. They weren't coming. And then it hit me. Hard, like a sucker punch I didn't see coming. They knew. They all knew how much this meant to me. 10 years of skipping nights out, wearing the same worn-out shoes, hustling every job I could find just to get to this moment. And still, they didn't care enough to show up. But as the bitter sting of betrayal sank deep into my bones, another feeling flared in my chest. Hot, dangerous, and consuming. It wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't disappointment. It was something darker. I wasn't just going to forgive and forget. Not this time. Not after everything I'd sacrificed for them. I rose slowly from the floor, the empty house suddenly feeling less like a home and more like a battlefield. My heart pounded in my ears as I whispered to myself, "They'll regret this." And that's when I heard the faint creak of the back door. Was someone here? The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as I stepped toward the kitchen, my fists clenched. The house that was supposed to be a celebration now felt like a trap. Before I tell you what I found when I opened that door, do me a favor. Hit that like button, watch till the end, and subscribe if you don't want to miss how this all unfolds. Trust me, you're going to want to hear the rest. My name is Jason Miller. I'm 33 years old, born and raised in a small Ohio town, where family is supposed to mean everything. Growing up, my parents, Richard and Linda, drilled into me the value of loyalty. I believed them. Oh, how I believed them. I believed them even when my dad walked out on us for 3 years when I was 10, only to come crawling back when his new girlfriend dumped him. I believed them even when my mom told me we were in this together right before she signed my college fund over bail my older brother Mike out of jail for fraud. Mike, the golden boy. Charming, reckless Mike, who could do no wrong in their eyes. And then there's Emily, my baby sister, the quiet one, the one who always seemed caught in the crossfire but never lifted a finger to defend me. We weren't a perfect family, but we were all we had. Or so I thought. By the time I turned 23, I was done waiting for miracles. I worked construction by day, did side gigs at night, and skipped vacations, birthdays, even weddings, anything that cost extra. My dream? To own a house big enough to host everyone. To prove that even the boring, responsible son could create something incredible. I imagine my mom crying happy tears, my dad slapping my back. Mike actually congratulated me for once. The years crawled by. There were nights I came home with my back screaming in pain, my hands bleeding from calluses, and my savings account barely moving. There were moments I almost gave up, like the winter my car broke down and I had to walk 2 miles to work in the snow. Or when Emily got engaged and my parents couldn't chip in for your down payment, Jason, because we're paying for her wedding. Still, I pushed on. Then, finally, it happened. I found her. A 2-story colonial on a quiet street, white shutters, a wraparound porch, and a backyard that begged for summer barbecues. The day I signed the papers, my hands shook so badly I could barely hold the pen. I cried in my car afterward, not because I was sad, but because every sacrifice, every lonely night had led to this. I called my family first. My mom squealed. My dad said he was proud. Even Mike sounded impressed. Well, as impressed as he could be. Housewarming's going to be epic, bro, he joked. So I planned it. I spent weeks preparing. I cooked their favorite dishes, polished every surface, even laid out old family photos to make them feel at home. I wanted them to see the dream I had built brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. I wanted them to feel included. But the morning of a housewarming, something strange happened. Mike texted me, "Running a little late, but we'll be there." Emily sent a heart emoji. My mom said, "Can't wait, honey." And then nothing. No cars in the driveway. No knocks on the door. Just silence. At first, I told myself they were stuck in traffic. Then maybe there had been some mix-up of the time. But when I called, no one picked up. The food went cold. The candles burned low. The playlist ended. And the only sound left in that big, beautiful house was my own breathing. Now, standing in my perfect but empty living room, I stared at the back door, which had just creaked open on its own, or maybe not on its own. My pulse quickened as I reached for the nearest thing I could use as a weapon, a heavy glass vase on the counter. The night that was supposed to be a celebration had turned into something else entirely. I stepped closer, the air suddenly colder. I pushed the door wide, expecting maybe the wind had blown it open, but what I saw froze me in place. Someone was standing in my backyard, and it wasn't any of my family. The figure's face was hidden by the shadows, but the outline of a gun glinted under the porch light. My breath caught in my throat as the figure slowly raised a weapon. The celebration was over. The real story was just beginning. The gun glinted again under the porch light, and for a split second my whole body locked. The air felt thick, like it was choking me. The stranger didn't move. They just stood there, their shadows stretching across my backyard like some dark omen. My fingers tightened around the vase until my knuckles went white. Then, just as suddenly, the figure lowered the gun and vanished into the trees. For a moment, I didn't breathe. My mind screamed, was that real? Did someone just stand in my yard with a gun? I pushed open the screen door, the hinges whining, and stepped outside. The night was colder than it had been a minute ago, or maybe it just felt that way. Crickets chirped like nothing had happened. But the grass near the porch had fresh footprints, big ones, leading toward the fence. I scanned the darkness, my heart hammering, but whoever it was had melted into the night. My phone was still on the kitchen counter, and I grabbed it with shaking hands. I dialed Mike, straight to voicemail. Emily, voicemail. Mom, voicemail. Suddenly, a vibration. A text from an unknown number lit up my screen. "You thought tonight was yours. Think again." My knees almost gave out. This wasn't just a missed housewarming. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. I locked every door and window, turned off all the lights, and sat in the dark living room, clutching that vase like it was a lifeline. Every sound, a branch tapping against the window, the hum of the refrigerator, felt sinister. I barely slept that night, but when the sun came up, I was already pacing, rehearsing what I'd say to my family. When I finally reached my mom, her voice was too calm. "Jason, honey, we had an emergency. Mike's in trouble again. We'll explain later." "An emergency?" I snapped. "You couldn't even send a text?" "Someone was in my yard with a gun last night." She gasped but then lowered her voice. "Jason, don't start with the drama. We'll talk soon." Click. The line went dead. By noon, I was driving to Mike's place. His neighborhood always smelled like cigarettes and regret. His beat-up Chevy was in the driveway, but the windows of his apartment were dark. I banged on the door. No answer. When I pressed my ear to the door, I thought I heard whispering inside, two voices, low and urgent. "Mike, open up." I yelled. Silence. Then footsteps retreated deeper into the apartment. That's when I spotted something near the mat, a small, crumpled piece of paper. I picked it up and smoothed it out. It was a photo of my dream house, taken last week. My blood ran cold. Someone had been watching me even before the housewarming. On the back, a single word was scrawled. "Ours." I backed away, suddenly aware of how quiet the whole street was. The hairs on my arms prickled. A movement in the window, just the corner of a curtain twitching, made my stomach drop. I didn't wait to see more. I got in my truck and floored it out of there. I drove aimlessly for a while. I mined a tornado of fear and anger. I thought about every sacrifice I'd made, every dollar I'd saved, every moment of loneliness I'd endured to buy that house. And now it felt like my dream was under attack. I pulled into a diner just outside town to clear my head. The waitress, a woman with tired eyes and a warm smile, poured me coffee without asking. "Rough day," she said. I forced a laugh. Rough life. But even as I tried to make small talk, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. Every time the door chimed, I tensed. Every time someone laughed behind me, I flinched. My phone buzzed again, another unknown number. This time it was a video. Hands, two of them, rummaging through drawers. My drawers. In my house. My bedroom. The camera lingered on my grandmother's locket, the one she'd given me before she died, the only thing I had left of her. Then the screen went black. I dropped a few bills on the table and bolted for my truck. When I got back home, the front door was still locked. Nothing seemed disturbed. But when I checked my bedroom, the locket was gone. The weight of betrayal pressed down harder now. My family hadn't just skipped my housewarming. They had left me vulnerable. And whoever was behind this wasn't just playing games anymore. Hours passed in a blur. I tore through every room, checking for more missing items or hidden clues. As evening fell, exhaustion set in, and I collapsed on the couch, my head pounding. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, a loud crash jolted me awake. It was coming from the garage. I grabbed a crowbar this time, stronger than a vase, and crept toward the sound, my pulse thrumming like a drum line. The garage door creaked as I pushed it open. At first, I saw nothing, just shadows dancing across boxes and tools. Then, in the corner, a figure crouched by my workbench, rifling through a drawer. "Hey!" I shouted, stepping forward. The figure whirled around, mask on, eyes wild, and in his hand was a knife. He lunged. The knife's blade flashed under the dim garage light as the masked intruder lunged toward me. Instinct took over. I swung the crowbar with every ounce of strength in my arms. The metal connected with a sharp clang, and the impact sent the knife clattering across the concrete floor. The masked man stumbled back, a muffled grunt escaping his lips. I didn't wait. I swung again, grazing his shoulder, but he darted past me, slammed open the side door, and bolted into the night. My legs moved before my brain could catch up. I chased him into the yard, my boots pounding the damp grass, my breath ragged in the cold air. The porch light threw long, jagged shadows as the man sprinted toward the fence. "Stop!" I shouted, but my voice was swallowed by the darkness. He leapt the fence with a speed that made my stomach drop. It was practiced, too fluid for a random burglar. By the time I scrambled over, he was gone. Only the wind whistling through the trees answered me. I stood there, chest heaving, crowbar trembling in my hands. Whoever this was, they weren't just after valuables. They were after me. I returned to the garage, scanning for anything that might tell me who he was. That's when I saw it. Tucked under a pile of rags on the workbench was an envelope. My name was written across the front in my mother's handwriting. My pulse spiked as I tore it open. Inside was a single line scrawled in shaky ink. "Stop digging, Jason, or you'll lose more than your house." For a second, the room spun. My own mother? Warning me off? No, this had to be some sick joke. I shoved the note in my pocket, locked every door in the house, and slumped against the kitchen counter. My mind churned. Mike's whispers behind a locked door, the photo marked ours, the intruder with the gun. Now this. By morning, the fury had set in. Fear was being replaced by a cold, calculating anger. If my family thought they could scare me into backing down, they didn't know me at all. I drove to my parents' place, the tires screeching, as I pulled into their driveway. My mom opened the door, her face pale. "Jason, what are you—" I shoved the envelope toward her. "Care to explain this?" She blinked at it, her lips trembling. I didn't write that." "Don't lie to me." My voice cracked with rage. "Your handwriting is all over this. What's going on? Why weren't you at my housewarming? And why is someone threatening me?" Her shoulders slumped as if the weight of the world was crushing her. "It's not what you think," she whispered. "We were trying to protect you." "Protect me?" By skipping the most important night of my life. Before she could answer, my dad appeared behind her, his jaw tight. "Jason, drop it. You don't understand what you're walking into. Oh, I understand enough. I shot back. Someone was in my yard with a gun. Someone broke into my house. And now, I held up the note. If you're hiding something, you better start talking. My dad's eyes flicked to my mom's, then back to me. We can't, he said. Can't or won't. Neither of them spoke. The silence was louder than any answer they could have given. Fuming, I stormed out, slamming the door behind me. The sky had darkened. Heavy clouds, threatening rain. I didn't know where I was going until I realized my truck was pointed toward the police station. Inside, Officer Reynolds, a grizzled cop I'd known since high school, listened patiently as I told him everything. The gun, the break-in, the envelope. His face was unreadable. You're saying someone's targeting you, he said finally. Yes, and I think my family knows something. He tapped his pen against his notepad. Jason, your brother Mike's name's been coming up in a fraud investigation. Big money. Dangerous people. It's possible they think you know more than you do. Fraud investigation? My stomach dropped. Reynolds nodded. If Mike crossed the wrong folks, they might be sending a message. And if your parents are keeping quiet, maybe they're scared too. I left the station with my head spinning. The rain had started. Fat drops splattering the pavement as I drove home. The wipers smeared water across the windshield, but they couldn't clear the image of my family's faces from my mind. Guilt, fear, and something else I couldn't quite name. When I pulled into my driveway, the house looked different. The lights inside flickered, even though I was sure I'd turned them all off that morning. Not again, I muttered, gripping the crowbar still lying on the passenger seat. I stepped inside cautiously. The flickering was coming from the living room, and then I heard it, a faint, muffled sound. Crying. I rounded the corner and my heart stopped. Emily, my baby sister, was sitting on my couch, her makeup streaked with tears. Her hands were bound with duct tape, and a strip of tape covered her mouth. Before I could react, a voice from behind me hissed, "Close the door, Jason." Slowly. I froze. The click of a gun hammer being drawn back echoed in my ears. And I obeyed. The sound of the gun's hammer being pulled back felt louder than thunder in my ears. I swallowed hard, my palms slick around the crowbar. Slowly. I closed the door behind me, the click of the latch sealing me into the nightmare. Dropped the crowbar. The voice said, calm, deliberate, but with an edge that promised he'd pull the trigger without hesitation. I let it clatter to the floor. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. Hand where I can see them. I raised my hands. Fingers trembling. My eyes flicked to Emily. Her wide, tearful gaze begged me to do whatever they said. A man stepped out from behind the dining room wall. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black hoodie and a ski mask. The gun in his hand looked even more menacing under the flickering light. Good, he said. Now, Jason, we're going to have a little talk. I tried to keep my voice steady. Let her go. Whatever you want, take it. Just let her go. He chuckled darkly. Oh, I don't want your things. Not yet. I want answers. Where's the money? My stomach dropped. What money? The money your brother owes, he snapped. He didn't tell you? He stole from people you shouldn't steal from. Now we're cleaning up his mess. I don't know anything about that, I said, my throat tight. I've got nothing to do with Mike's scams. The masked man tilted his head, considering me. Then he nodded toward Emily. Funny, that's what he said too. But we know he hid it, and we know family talks. Emily whimpered behind the tape, shaking her head as if begging me not to reveal something. I don't know where the money is. I shouted. The man's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Then maybe you need motivation. He yanked Emily to her feet, pressing the gun against her temple. She muffled a scream. My legs turned to jelly, but something inside me snapped at the sight of her terror. Stop. Please, just don't hurt her. Look, maybe I can find out where Mike stashed it. Just give me time. The man stared at me through the mask for a long, tense moment. Then he shoved Emily back onto the couch. 24 hours, he said. Find the money, or next time she doesn't walk away. He backed toward the door, still pointing the gun at us, and slipped into the darkness. The front door shut softly behind him, but the threat lingered like smoke in the air. I rushed to Emily, ripping the tape from her mouth and wrists. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "Jason, it's worse than you think," she whispered between tears. Mike isn't just in trouble with some guys. He's in deep with the cartel. They think he hid $500,000 somewhere, and now they're after all of us." Her words hit me like a freight train. $500,000. A cartel. My dream house. The place I thought would bring my family together. Had turned into a target. "We have to go to the police," I said. Emily shook her head violently. "No. They said they'd kill us if we involved the cops. They're watching everything. Phones, cars, maybe even your house." I looked around the room, suddenly aware of every shadow, every creak of the walls. Could they already be listening? "We can't just do nothing," I said. "If we don't find that money, we're dead." Emily's tear-streaked face hardened. "There's something I haven't told you." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. "Mike gave me this a month ago. He said if anything happened to him, I should give it to you." I stared at the tiny drive like it was radioactive. "What's on it?" "I don't know, but he said it's the key." We plugged it into my laptop. A single file appeared, no name, just a string of numbers. When I opened it, a grainy video played. Mike's face filled the screen, his eyes bloodshot, his expression desperate. "Jason, if you're watching this, I'm probably dead," his recorded voice said. "They're going to come for you. I didn't steal from them. I hid the money because I found out what they were planning. You have to find it before they do. And trust no one, not even Mom and Dad." The screen went black. Emily's breath caught. "Oh my God!" Before I could process the words, the living room window shattered. Glass exploded inward as a brick crashed on the floor, skidding across the tiles. I rushed to the window and saw headlights flicker out on the street. Someone had been parked outside, watching. On the brick, a piece of paper was tied with string. Hands shaking, I unwrapped it. Scrawled in thick black marker were just 2 words. "Time's up." The world seemed to tilt. They weren't giving us 24 hours after all. Emily clutched my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Jason, what do we do now?" I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that the walls were closing in fast, and someone out there wanted us gone. A car door slammed outside. Then heavy footsteps approached the porch. The front doorknob began to turn. The doorknob rattled once, then again, slow, deliberate twists that made the hair on my arms rise. Emily's fingers dug into my sleeve, her breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. I motioned for her to stay silent and crouched behind the couch, gripping the crowbar so tight my palms ached. The door creaked open. A figure stepped inside, silhouetted by the porch light behind them. My heart leapt into my throat. Another masked intruder? But then the light hit his face. "Dad." Richard Miller shut the door quietly, his eyes darting around like a hunted man. His usually neat hair was a mess, his shirt wrinkled and damp with sweat. "Jason," he whispered harshly, "we need to go now." Emily's voice cracked. "Where's Mom?" Dad's jaw tightened. "They took her." The word slammed into me like a punch to the gut. "What do you mean, took her?" "The cartel. They grabbed her outside the grocery store an hour ago. They said if we don't bring them the money by sunrise, she's dead." His voice broke on the last word, but he forced himself upright. "We don't have much time." Emily's sob filled the room. I grabbed the flash drive and shoved it into my pocket. Mike's video said not to trust anyone. "Why should we trust you?" Dad's face twisted with pain. "Because I'm the only one who knows where he hid part of that money. And I'm not leaving your mother to die." A car engine roared outside, the sound of tires crunching gravel pulling us to the window. A black SUV idled at the curb, its headlights off, but we could make out the outline of a man in the driver's seat. A phone pressed his ear. Watching. Waiting. "They're here," Emily whispered. Dad swore under his breath. "They're watching the house. We need to slip out the back and take the old service road. It leads to the storage units where Mike used to work. If he hid anything, it'll be there." We moved fast, gathering only what we could carry: flashlight, crowbar, the flash drive, and my truck keys. Emily wrapped her arms around herself, her face pale, but her jaw set. We slipped out through the garage and into the woods behind the property. Branches snagged at our clothes as we pushed through the underbrush, the distant hum of the SUV's engine fading as we got further away. Every crunch of leaves underfoot sounded like a gunshot in the still night. When we reached the service road, Dad led us to an old Ford he'd stashed there earlier. In case we needed a backup, he muttered. The drive to the storage units felt endless. Rain started to fall, streaking the windshield in blurry rivers. Emily sat rigid in the back seat, her eyes darting to every passing car. I couldn't stop replaying Mike's video in my head, his desperate face, his warning not to trust anyone. Was Dad really on our side, or was he using us to get the money? We pulled up to the storage lot, a lonely stretch of metal doors under flickering fluorescent lights. The rain had turned into a downpour, drumming on the roof like gunfire. Dad killed the engine and scanned the rows. Unit 47, he said. That's where he always went when he didn't want anyone to find him. We hurried to the unit, water soaking our clothes, the cold biting through to the bone. Dad fumbled with the lock, his hands shaking. Finally, the door rolled up with a groan, revealing stacks of dusty boxes and old furniture. Search everything, he said. We tore through the boxes, old photo albums, broken tools, Christmas decorations. Nothing. Then Emily spotted a floor panel in the corner that didn't quite match the others. Jason, here. I pried it up with a crowbar. Beneath was a waterproof bag. Inside, bundles of cash, neatly wrapped in plastic. Tens of thousands of dollars. My breath caught. This isn't all of it, Dad muttered, counting quickly. This is maybe a quarter, but it's enough to bargain with. Suddenly, headlights swept across the lot. An engine revved. They found us. Emily gasped. The black SUV screeched to a halt outside the unit, and two men in masks jumped out, guns raised. Run, Dad yelled. We bolted to the maze of storage units as bullets cracked through the rain, sparks flying where they struck metal doors. My lungs burned, my shoes slipping on the wet pavement. I heard Emily scream, then the sound of her falling. I spun around. She was on the ground, her ankle twisted, one of the masked men closing in. Jason, go, she cried. But I wasn't leaving her. I charged, swinging the crowbar with all my strength. It connected with the man's arm, and he howled, dropping his gun. Dad grabbed Emily, hauling her up, and we sprinted toward the far fence. Another shot rang out, and Dad stumbled, a sharp cry escaping his lips. Blood blossomed on his shoulder. No! Emily screamed. We dragged him the rest of the way, slipping through a gap in the fence just as the SUV's headlights flooded the yard. We tumbled into a ditch on the other side, gasping for breath. Dad's face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. You too. Go on without me, he rasped. Don't you dare, I said, ripping a strip from my shirt to press against the wound. We're not leaving you. The distant roar of the SUV's engine grew louder. They were circling around. We need a plan, Emily whispered, panic lacing her voice. But before we could speak, a new set of headlights appeared on the horizon, blue and red lights flashing through the rain. Sirens wailed, echoing off the metal storage units. The cartel's SUV skidded to a stop, then sped off into the night. A police cruiser pulled up near the ditch. Two officers stepped out, guns drawn. Hands where we can see them, one shouted. Emily froze. Dad groaned. I slowly raised my hands, the crowbar dropping into the mud. This isn't what it looks like. I began, my voice shaking. But then I saw him, Officer Reynolds, the same cop I'd spoken to earlier, step out of the cruiser. His expression wasn't relief or concern. It was cold, calculating. And in that moment, under the flashing lights, with my father bleeding beside me and my sister trembling, I understood. The cops weren't here to save us. They were in on it. The flashing red and blue lights painted the rain-soaked storage lot in streaks of color. But all I could see was a flat, icy-looking Officer Reynolds' eyes. He wasn't here to rescue us. He was here to finish what the cartel started. My gut twisted as he gave a small nod to the other officer, who stepped forward with his gun still drawn. "Drop to your knees," Reynolds ordered, his voice calm but sharp, like a blade. Emily clutched Dad's arm, her face pale. "Jason, what do we do?" she whispered. I raised my hands higher. "You don't have to do this, Reynolds. You've known me since high school." A flicker of recognition passed across his face, then disappeared as quickly as it came. "You're in the wrong place at the wrong time, kid. You should have stayed out of this." Dad groaned, his breathing shallow, blood seeping through my makeshift bandage. They paid you off," he rasped. Reynolds' jaw tightened. "You think your brother stole $500,000 from a cartel, and I wouldn't take my cut to make sure it stayed buried?" The other officer moved closer, the barrel of his gun inches from my chest. My mind raced. If I hesitated, we'd all die here. If I acted recklessly, Emily and Dad would pay the price. Then I remembered the waterproof bag, the cash we grabbed. Without taking my eyes off Reynolds, I said quietly, "Emily, the money!" She blinked in confusion. Then her hand slid toward the bag near her feet. I gave the faintest nod. She understood. In one swift motion, she yanked the bag open and hurled a bundle of cash into the muddy ground. Bills exploded everywhere, scattering across the ditch like fallen leaves. Both officers' eyes flicked down instinctively. That was all the distraction I needed. I lunged to the closer cop, slamming my shoulder into his ribs. The gun fired, the bullet whistling past my ear. We hit the ground hard, mud splattering. I wrestled the weapon from his hand and flung it into the dark. Reynolds cursed, raising his own gun, but Emily was already moving. She swung the crowbar I dropped earlier, smashing it into his arm. He howled, the gun clattering away. "Run!" I shouted. We scrambled through the ditch, Dad stumbling between us. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. More cops were coming, but we couldn't tell if they were allies or part of the setup. We darted through the rain-slicked trees, our breaths ragged, hearts pounding. The sound of pursuit faded as we slipped deeper into the woods, finally collapsing under the skeletal branches of an old oak. Dad sagged against the trunk, his face ashen. "Jason," he wheezed, "there's something you need to know." I pressed harder on his wound. "Save your strength. We'll get you to a hospital." He shook his head weakly. "The rest of the money? Mike didn't hide it all in the storage unit. He left a map in your house, behind the family photo, in your study. But listen, the cartel, they're everywhere. You can't trust anyone." Emily's lip trembled. "We can't go back there, they'll be watching." "We don't have a choice," I said. "If we don't end this tonight, Mom dies, and they'll never stop hunting us." By the time we reached the outskirts of my property, dawn's gray light was creeping over the horizon. The house stood quiet, almost serene, as if the horror of the past 24 hours hadn't happened. My hand shook as I eased open the back door and stepped inside. The family photo, our last Christmas together before everything fell apart, hung crooked on the wall. I pulled it down, my fingers fumbling at the backing. A folded piece of paper slid out, yellowed and fragile. I unfolded it. It wasn't just a map. It was a full confession in Mike's handwriting. He hadn't stolen the money for himself. He'd intercepted a cartel shipment after discovering Reynolds was laundering their drug cash through town. He had hidden the bulk of it in a drainage culvert by the river, planning to turn it over to the feds. Proof of the cartel's operation and the cops' betrayal. "We can use this," I whispered. "This isn't just money. It's leverage." Before Emily could answer, the floor creaked behind us. Reynolds stood in the doorway, his shirt muddy, his face twisted with rage. His gun was leveled at my chest. "Put the map down, Jason," he growled. "It's over." "Over," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through me. "Not quite." I flicked my eyes to Emily. She understood instantly. While Reynolds' attention was locked on me, she reached for the flash drive still plugged into my laptop. With a single keystroke, she sent the video of Mike's confession to every contact on my email list, including local news outlets, the state police, and the FBI office 2 towns over. The sent chime was soft, but the weight behind it was deafening. Reynolds' phone buzzed almost immediately. His eyes widened as he realized what had just happened. "You'll be dead before they even believe you," he spat. "Maybe," I said, taking a cautious step closer. "But now they're watching you too." For the first time, I saw fear flash across his face. It was small, fleeting, but it was there. And that's when headlights swept across the yard, followed by the roar of multiple engines. Black SUVs and police cruisers boxed in the driveway. The FBI insignia gleamed on their doors. A booming voice called through a megaphone, "Richard Reynolds, drop your weapon and step outside." Reynolds' resolve crumbled. He glanced from the window to us. Fury etched into every line of his face. Then he bolted for the back door. But the moment he flung it open, agents tackled him to the ground. It was over. Or, at least, the worst of it was hours later. After giving our statements, I stood outside my battered dream home, the sun now high in the sky. Mom was safe, shaken but safe, rescued from a cartel safe house after the feds stormed it. Dad's shoulder had been patched up at the hospital, and Emily was dozing in the back of an ambulance, exhaustion finally winning. The housewarming meal I'd cooked 2 nights ago was still on the table, cold and untouched, a painful reminder of the night that started it all. But as I looked at my family, bloodied, bruised, but alive, I felt something shift inside me. The dream I'd chased for 10 years hadn't just been about walls and a roof. It had been about family. And even after betrayal, lies, and bullets flying through the rain, we were still here. I took a deep breath, letting the warm sunlight wash over me. The cartel's power was broken. Reynolds was in custody. Mike's truth was finally out. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that maybe, just maybe, we could start over. This house wasn't just my dream anymore. It was proof that even in the darkest nights, there's a way to fight back and win.